Are you tired of the same old Roblox death run? Are the highly detailed maps and elaborate traps too much for you to handle? Well, fear not, because Obi Creator has a new attraction brought to you by Gold Devil. Introducing Gold Devil's Death Run. Yes, that's right everyone, my good friend Gold Devil has made a bunch of courses in Obi Creator that simulate death run maps. And considering the restrictions he worked under, they're actually pretty well made and fun to play. There are 4 maps I'll be covering in this video, with more still to come. Before I review each map, first thing I want to say is that the traps overall are pretty basic. But we really can't fault Gold Devil for that. Like I said, the game is currently quite limited in how it can replicate other games' mechanics. Anyway, onto the 4 maps that I got enough footage of. First up is Mythical Forest. This map has a nice fantastic forest setting that goes through a couple of cave passes with stuff like glowing mushrooms and spikes in it. It's actually kind of pretty to look at. The traps are pretty fun for what they are, if a bit all over the place. Pools of purple and green goo, spikes, boulders that barely pose a threat, and bridges are pretty straightforward and stuff, and this spinner is nothing but good times. But then there's things like lasers, molten rock, and even oil spills. This is one wacky forest. A wacky forest that's definitely fun to go through, despite its oddities. Up next is Wild West. That's very imaginative. Another nice looking map that takes place in a mining town, which is oddly painted on the cliff face. This place has some nice geography, and a welcoming amount of cacti, boxes, and trees to liven up the place. And that's about it really, it just looks nice. Oh, and you can climb up on top of this shelter here, which probably wasn't intentional. For the traps, this town's got high winds, water spillages, pits, sinking rocks, a giant cherry bomb, and, sewage, a cauldron, not that I can complain, whatever the hell this fabric is, and more lasers? Maybe you should rename this Wild Wild West. Why not throw in some flamethrowers while we're at it? Next is Tight Sewers, and even though I think it's the weakest of the maps in this video, it still has its moments. The map, though unattractive as dirt, does have a pretty good atmosphere. Dark, gritty, and somewhat barren, just like a real sewer. This little tower here is pretty cool, if a bit confusing at first. I actually got lost here for a bit the first time I played this. Once you're past that though, the path from there onward becomes pretty narrow and it gets boring pretty fast. At least the traps there are some of the better ones. Speaking of traps, this map has sludge. Lots of it. And they pour over everything. Nothing is safe from the sludge. It even defies gravity. What kind of sewer is this? Besides that, there's a conveyor belt that's rather easy to avoid, bridges, a couple of blades, and the best of them all, the sludge spinner. If you can't tell already, I like spinners. Lastly, there's Autumn Falls, which is probably my favorite of these maps so far. Though not quite as pretty as Wild West in my opinion, it's mostly just trees with a few wooden structures and rocks here and there. It's still one of the better looking maps in Gold Devil's collection. No, where this map shines is the traps. This map has a little more variety in the traps compared to the other maps, and therefore I find it the most fun. It's got rolling logs with a fairly obvious blind spot, a couple of flamethrowers, though one of them looks more like a flattened beehive, a set of platforms with alternating targets, a boardwalk that gets struck by lightning, rocks with water jets jumping over them. Why does this last area feel a lot like Seasonal Island? And oh come on man, a checkpoint on a trap? That's just evil. Despite that though, I overall just remember having the most fun with this map. I do have one minor criticism with these maps. You may have noticed if you were paying attention, but all these maps have largely the same path layout. With the slight exception of Tight Sewers, they all follow a snake-like pathway that begins with a left turn. That's probably my one true gripe with these maps. That and the trap balancing isn't perfect. But that's a pretty easy fix, so I'm not really bothered. Plus, Death Run has had balance issues to begin with. Overall, this is a pretty cool and fun experience if you like Obi Creator and Death Run. These maps are good and all, but I think they're just one content update away from being great. Imagine if there was a way to make the traps more animated. Nothing a bit of creativity can't handle, but still, think of the possibilities. As it stands though, I'm honestly impressed by the amount of work put into making the map layouts and programming the traps. If you know Gold Devil and you enjoy Obi Creator, I honestly kinda recommend this. It's a unique experience in this game that I think is worth checking out. I hope this was an interesting topic for anyone, and I hope Gold Devil's death run continues to grow. Baneworth out.